Frontier recently released a load of information on the upcoming update operations as well as their future plans for 2026. Along with that information, we got some brand new footage of the update itself, and I'm going to look at that in closer detail in this video. I've noticed a few interesting things about this, including some, potential problems, as well as a few interesting things as well. We've also got the internal stats for the Kestrel Mark II, the new upcoming ship. We're going to reveal all of that. And also, Distant Worlds 3 is making a tremendous progress, as is Colonization, which has some truly impressive stats. So, let's start with that operations update. This is due for release in April. It was slightly delayed from the end of last year. It's now coming in at the end of the first quarter of this year. And this is all about a sphere of combat, as it were. Kind of missions that you can do inside a ship, or you can do on the ground, or you can even do inside the megaships, which I do believe we're seeing on the footage right here. So I do have a few observations about this footage. A few parts of it are fairly concerning to me, although, we should keep in mind that this is a pre-release footage. The release isn't for another, 2+ months yet, so a lot could change in that time. But that aside, I'm also interested and pretty impressed to see that Frontier are finally working towards missions that will have shared activities across people as well as across space, allowing you to do missions inside spaceships and transition to either ground-based activities or inside megaship activities is something I've wanted to see for a long time. I know a lot of people have as well. At any rate, moving on to my observations about this footage. And just briefly here, if you haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing, because it helps get these videos out there and it also helps this channel immensely. So we can assume quite reasonably that this is taking place aboard a megaship. We saw them entering a megaship right at the start of the footage. Just going to show you that here again for confirmation and clarity. Broadly speaking, I have two concerns about this. First is the performance. I do feel that the FPS, the frame rate here, is relatively low. Now, we know from past experience and current experience that Odyssey does have some frame rate issues right across the board when it comes to FPS action. This normally happens on surface settlements, not always, not exclusively for everyone, but it's noticeable enough and frequent enough that it is an ongoing problem. The FPS does seem to be, that's the frame rates, for those not quite sure what I meant about FPS here, the frame rates seem to be fairly low in some areas here as well. Obviously, we haven't got any numbers, so I don't want to speculate on exactly what's happening here in terms of performance, but in my opinion, just based purely on what we're seeing here, it doesn't appear to be anything like a consistent, smooth 60 frames per second. But do keep in mind, again, that this won't be released for quite a while yet, so there is room for improvement. The other area I have some observations on and thoughts on here is the fact that this is taking place on board a megaship, and as we know, anti-gravity does not exist within the world of Elite Dangerous. They've got no anti-gravity technology. Now, with that in mind, look at the issue right there. The person was shot and fell to the floor. That is in a zero-G environment. Now, these people are sticking to the floor because they've got mag boots. So he fell to the floor, he laid on the ground, he didn't drift away or anything like that. That means, it seems to suggest that there's no other factors at play here, no zero-G mechanics in a zero-G environment. That's a bit of a shame. It's a bit disappointing because I would like to see a lot more going on in that particular area. After all, having full-on FPS combat in zero-G would make for very interesting mechanics. It would be dramatically different to what we have down on the surface. It would be very different to what we have in the ships. Just imagine you're either floating through these environments, or if Frontier really want to just stick with mag boots and not have the ability to float around, then at the very least you should be able to walk on the walls as well as the ceilings. That alone would make things quite a bit more interesting and make things feel very different when you're on board the megaships. That said, and to be perfectly fair to Frontier, they have confirmed that these megaships are zero-G environments when they said in a previous live stream, a previous devblog rather, that when you throw grenades on these ships, they don't just drop to the floor because there's no gravity. You throw a grenade and they keep going. So it turns out that the zero-G does apply to some things, it just doesn't apply right across the board. But at any rate, I don't want to go too tough on this just yet because obviously the update hasn't released yet, and those are just some of my initial impressions, but we'll have to wait and see until we get full hands-on with this. But like I've said previously, at least in terms of principle, in terms of the whole concept and idea of operations, I do like where they're going with it. This has a lot of potential after all. Now, moving on, we come to the new ship, the Kestrel Mark II. Frontier announced this early in the week, but they didn't at that time release any stats. Stats here, of course, meaning the internal and optional modules. Now, we do have that information right now, and you can see it on the screen. I will briefly read it out. We've got 4 utility slots, 3 large hardpoints. This is actually a lot, considering this is actually a small ship. 2 small hardpoints, so 5 hardpoints in total. Size 5 power plant, size 5 thrusters, size 4 FSD, size 1 life support, size 5 power distributor, size 2 sensors, size 4 fuel tank. In terms of optional internals, we have 1 size 1, 3 size 2s, 1 size 3, 2 size 4s, one of these is a military slot, and 1 size 5. It's also worth pointing out that there's a large fixed mount shock cannon, which has some adaptations on it, and obviously this is going to be quite different to what we've seen before in terms of a small ship. And the size 5 thrusters also have a unique boost function. This is quite different to what we've seen before because it supposedly contributes towards maneuverability when you're boosting, when you're actually using that function. So we'll have to see how all of this goes. There's no way to know without having hands-on. I do have early access to this along with some other people in the YouTube Partner Program, or the Elite Dangerous Partner Program, but I haven't actually got around to testing this out fully myself yet. One thing I do speculate on here though, I do assume that a lot of people are going to be wondering about the hardpoints here, because at least on the paper it does look as though this ship is going to have way more firepower than the other equivalent ships, than the Eagle or the Vulture. Time will tell though. I don't want to make any judgments right now, but let's see how this one goes. Let me know about your thoughts and feelings on this ship in the comment section below, because I'd love to hear from you. In other news, we've got some information on colonization. So this update is, about a year old now, coming on for a year old. It was released with the Trailblazers in 2025. Since then, apparently a lot of players have actively got involved with it. Frontier have released some stats here. They say 101,000 systems have been colonized, nearly 102,000 in fact. 307,000 facilities have been built in space. This would include space stations and the like. And 175,000 facilities have been built on planetary surfaces. This is a ton of involvement from the player base, and they've actively contributed towards changing the in-game galaxy. A lot of work going on here, a lot of hauling items from A to B. So yeah, very impressive to actually see stats at this type of level. Elsewhere, we've got Distant Worlds 3. The expedition is now at Beagle Point right now. This was the furthest destination, the final location for Distant Worlds 1 all those years ago, around about a decade back in fact. They're now preparing to move to the next destination, which I do believe is going to be the Eclipsion Halo. So I'll link the details in the video description on exactly what this is, but they say this was first explored by none other than the legendary Eramis, reading here from the Distant Worlds 3 website. Of course, Eramis is one of the lead, if not the lead, organisations for the Distant Worlds expeditions. So the Distant World organisers say this leg of our expedition marks the formal beginning of the science surveys and the search for Earth 2.0. And that particular search is one of the events that they've been planned for the entire expedition that many people will be able to get involved in. So there's a number of different points of interest along the way, including the Abyss, the Hot Pink Sunrise, the Cohen's Cohort, Aphrodite's Winter, Paradise and Sulphur, and a number of other places as well. Again, check out all of the information in the video description, because these are some places you're most certainly going to want to visit. So thanks for watching this video all the way through. That brings us to the end of this one. There is another video on the screen right here if you want to check that out. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.